I want to go back to Washington now. We've spoken a bit throughout the show about all these confirmation hearings, but I want to talk to you specifically about some of the hearings around Pete Hegseth, who's tapped to run defense. Now, he has been on the receiving end of some pretty nasty allegations around sex and drinking and a whole lot else, but he's fought back. Have a look at this.
Yeah.
And time again, stories would come out and people would reach out to me and say, you know, I've spoken to this reporter about who you really are, and I was willing to go on the record. But they didn't print my quote. They didn't print any of my quotes. Our left-wing media in America today, sadly, doesn't care about the truth. All they were out to do, Mr. Chairman, was to destroy me.
Karol, how have you rated how Pete Hegseth has handled himself here, and how the way he has handled himself has reflected on the media and a lot of Democrats who peddled an awful lot of gossip but don't seem to have been able to stack half of it up?
I think he's been pretty flawless. His answers were well prepared. He was very direct in his answers. And I think he's done just a terrific job, basically, repelling the attacks against him. The thing is, he's absolutely right that the media tried to destroy him. The liberal media absolutely came for him. They threw story after story after story at him. They didn't allow the other side to be heard at all classic media stuff. What he's not saying, and maybe that's because he now has their votes, is that a lot of Republican politicians were involved in this as well. They did not want him to get to a hearing because they knew they would have to vote yes on him. They have no reason not to. So they tried to get the media to do the dirty work for them. And I'm glad that he was able to beat that back, because these Republicans should be on the record. They should be able to say, I support him or I don't support him, and to say why. So I knew that once he got to the hearings that it would be smooth sailing for him, because they were trying so hard to put an end to those hearings and have it be trial by media.
Absolutely. And I also just sort of enjoyed some of the grace and humor with which he managed this. Check out this phenomenal moment when he absolutely owned Elizabeth Warren when she tried to gotcha him on a question about whether former generals should be allowed to serve as defense contractors.
You're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. But you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals.
It's not very often you see a hearing room like that fall apart in laughter, but I mean, that's some pretty good stuff.
Yeah, you know what I think the thing was there is that Elizabeth Warren thinks that she's very, very smart, and she did not think that Pete Hegseth is smart. I think a lot of people were surprised at how intelligent he is. I've been saying that since he was nominated. I've heard him speak. I've been sort of around him. We're not super close or anything, but I definitely have seen him be extremely, extremely bright. So I think a lot of these politicians were just unprepared for that. They didn't know that he was really smart. They didn't know that he would be able to answer their questions to such an extent, and to do it with a humor and a lightness that he has. And to just have this intelligent comeback, I knew that they would be in trouble if they got to the hearings.
But I think you just made a really interesting and important point, Karol, there, because what Elizabeth Warren, you say, is guilty of is thinking that she's smart and the other side is dumb. This is a pattern that plays itself out time and time again. We saw that play out in the first Trump administration. It does not seem like Trump's enemies have figured out the way that you deal with him yet, despite being exposed to him for almost a decade now.
That's true. So the thing is that they've stopped the he's stupid thing, and they've gone to he's evil, which is those are the only two options Republicans normally get: stupid or evil. That's all we got. And so now it's been that he's this threat to democracy, that he wants to bring down the country, that he, when he was president for the 4 years, he was basically, they accused him of being a secret agent for Russia. They've gone so far over the line that they don't know where the line is anymore. It's interesting to watch if they're going to be able to dial some of this insanity back, because I think it really did cost them at the polls. I think people saw what they were saying and said, that doesn't sound right to me. I don't think that Donald Trump is actually a Russian spy. And they went and they voted for this man who the Democrats said was going to end democracy. So they didn't believe any of the accusations against him. It'll be interesting to see if they could dial it back a little bit, maybe get a little bit back to sanity, and maybe that'll help them. But I don't see any evidence that they're willing to do that yet.
Hey, finally, Karol, speaking of sanity, tell me if I'm crazy or not, but isn't it a bit strange that Michelle Obama finally isn't going to wind up showing up at the inauguration next week? What do you make of that?
You know, I don't know, only because she also didn't come to the Jimmy Carter funeral. I wonder if there's something bigger going on. I always kind of lean towards personal problems over political issues. And she's been in situations before with Donald Trump, and she knows that she's going to have to be. I mean, he's going to be the president again. She's an ex-president's wife. They're going to have interaction. So if this is about Donald Trump, if she's saying like, oh, I don't want to be in the same room with him, she's going to have a lot more rooms to avoid in the future, and it'll look pettier and pettier as she does that.
I'm with you, Karol. I think there may be something else going on because, of course, Barack and Donald had that very warm chat at Jimmy Carter's funeral the other day. Thank you so much for your time, Karol Markowicz. Great to see you, and see you again through 2025.